Today's episode of Filmmaker U is brought to you by our sponsors OWC. Go to owcdigital.com for all your filmmaking and computer needs. And it's also brought to you by our other sponsors, AJA. Make sure to check out aja.com so that you can see how they can help you in your post-production needs. Hi, I'm Gordon Burkell from Filmmaker U. At Filmmaker U, we create film courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify your existing skill set. You can learn more at filmmakeru.com, or of course, follow us on Twitter at filmmaker_u. Every week we interview film professionals to discuss their work, and this is no different this week, where I'm going to be interviewing editor Calum Ross, whose work includes Sex Education, Shameless, Loki, and many, many other great shows. Welcome to the show, Calum.
Hi there, how you doing?
Pretty good, thanks. I guess my first question is going to be about Sex Education. So how did you get involved with that show? And what was your first impression when you started reading the scripts in terms of that show?
So I got involved when one of the producers sort of dropped me a text saying, he was doing this new show for Netflix. It was going to be really great, and whether I was available. So at the time I was on another show in the UK for Channel 4, and it wasn't looking like I was going to actually be available to do it. So yeah, we sort of kept in touch for a few weeks, and then as it happened, I ended up leaving the show I was on, and had a meeting with the director, Kate Herron, and yeah, it's we got on really well, and that was her first big TV show, so she didn't have a load of editors that she was used to working with. So she was quite happy to take the producer's call on it, who was John Jennings. And because we'd worked on lots of shows together, he knew that, I was a good fit for the show. And so, yeah, and then I was signed up and on board before I knew it. Yeah, so I was sent the scripts, and obviously they were, great scripts, but they'd already started shooting some of it. So I was able to see, a few bits and bobs from the show, and yeah, it was looking like it was going to be a hit, straight away. So there was no doubt I wanted to be part of it.
Yeah, there's in terms of the humor in it, because it does have humor. It's like a drama comedy.
Yeah.
But it can be really dry at times in terms of the humor. So how do you approach cutting something that has a dry sense of humor to get it to land for the audience?
Most of my background's in comedy, really. So, I've worked across, so many different styles of comedy over the years. So, I don't necessarily approach things differently when it comes to comedy. You just sort of have an instinct to know what will work for that scene, to get the best laughs, whether to get the timing, the cuts right, and all that kind of stuff. So the thing with comedy, I find, is it's really hard to edit comedy. There's within the drama world, there's such snobbery towards other genres, really. But actually, comedy for me is the hardest one to cut, because there's so many voices in a room that something that's funny on set might not be funny in the cutting room, and you have to almost earn the trust of the people you're working with to know that if something's not funny in the cutting room, it's not going to be funny, and you have to kind of build up that relationship with people so that they know when they view it for the first time and they don't laugh, it's not the editor's fault. It's so easy. It's so easy for us to get the blame when something's not funny. And certainly with my experience, what can quite often be funny on set is not funny in the cutting room, but also it can work the other way around, that, you show them a cut and it gets a great laugh and they're like, didn't expect that to be as funny as it has ended up. So, in terms of if it's got a dry comedy element to it, I don't necessarily approach that any differently to other forms of comedy, really.
So how do you, because you mentioned scenarios where you have a lot of voices in the room and dealing with something that might not be funny, how do you present something or bring it to the director or the showrunner if it's not working, so that they're on board with you for changes or making adjustments?
I mean, I've kind of been lucky with the things I've worked on, that they've always been pretty well written shows, and with lots of good comedy in there. So there's not many shows I've done that kind of haven't really worked. I don't want to name any. I did one a few years ago where the scripts were absolutely hilarious, but the material I was given just didn't quite live up to the funniness of the scripts. And kind of no matter how we cut it, it just wasn't really working. And I think that was largely down to too many voices on set, actually. And they were telling really good comedy actors how to perform and how to go up on this word, down on that word, leave a gap between those words, and all that sorts of things. And by the time it got to the cutting room, it was really hard to get the best out of the comedy on it, because the timing of their deliveries was different on so many of the takes that to cut from one shot to another was really tricky, because the pauses were in different places. And so I've been lucky that most of the stuff I've cut has been really well written and performed. So it tends to be more that you might lose a joke or two that aren't quite working. But on the whole, the piece is really working well, and it's really funny, and hopefully the edit for it's right. And and then, like I say, the more you work with comedy directors, the more they trust you in the cutting room to get the best out of what you're given. So when they see something, they know, of course, it can be tweaked and played with and recut. But it's you're going to get the best out of it as a team. Yeah.
Now, I want to jump to Loki. In terms of that show, it's very VFX heavy. And as you said, you'd worked on a lot of comedy work beforehand. Now, we have a lot of young people who dream of working on a show like Loki. So how do you make that, or how did you build up your career or get to the point where you could make that leap to a VFX heavy show like Loki?
I mean, I could count on two hands the number of VFX shots that I'd really dealt with in my career. Up until Loki. VFX was not a big part of many of the shows I'd done. I think BBC Atlantis show was the most VFX heavy show I'd done prior to Loki. And there were certain scenes that had a fair amount of VFX in them, but nothing close to Loki. So I mean, I would say Marvel are massively trusting in the people they hire. They would have known that I didn't have a huge CV full of VFX shows, but they gave me that opportunity to prove I could work with them. And so for me, it came out of the blue. I'd worked with Kate Herron on Sex Education, and and then one day she's dropping a tweet saying that she's just signed up to do Loki, and everyone was blown away by that tweet. So I sort of dropped her a message saying that's congratulations, that's epic, you deserve it. And then I sort of thought to myself a few days later, well, what's the harm in messaging her again, just saying if there's an opportunity to come on board, I would jump at the chance. And then, about 3 weeks later, I get a text from her saying, tell your agent to expect a call from Marvel. So, it's not every day that, you get a text like that. So, I mean, it's, I have to take my hat off to Marvel that they gave me that opportunity with very little VFX experience. But at the same time, you're surrounded by people who have got, years and years and years of working with VFX, and the support level at Marvel is the best out there. So I was surrounded by people who were helping me on that journey, and it just opened the door to another level of creativity within the cutting room, because you could start suggesting shots for sequences, and that day you would get a previs shot that you could slot into a scene and know whether it's going to work or not. So yeah, for people out there that are dying to work on VFX shows, then yeah, and by all means you can push yourself in that direction, assist on the types of shows that you want to end up cutting. But for me, it was just I worked with a director who happened to get a VFX heavy show and took me with her. So yeah, I think there's probably numerous ways to end up down that path, but for me it was, I didn't aim to take that path, but I certainly welcomed it. Yeah.
Well, it's so interesting because I've always felt that Marvel has been working really hard to find people who are storytellers rather than, like they could go out, they could get any director they wanted at this point.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But they're like, what, let's go with Taiki Waititi and see his vision for Thor, or let's see this person's vision for this and try it out. And okay, they want these editors or this team, let's bring them in. And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean that's the thing I've always enjoyed about the Marvel movies, is that it's almost like they work on the story first and then apply the VFX to the story, rather than be like, well, now we've got the technology, we can build this world and this, so let's build that world and then create a story within it. They seem to very much deal with the story, and then the visual effects sort of are secondary to their stories. So
yeah, it's funny because it's almost like they're not I think of like usually with VFX heavy shows, it's like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we could do this? As opposed to, here's the story, we need to figure out how to make this look good.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, working for Marvel was phenomenal, and I hope I'm invited back, to do more with them, because it's like being in a family where everybody knows each other, and they're so collaborative all the way to the top. You've got a voice in that room, and whether your ideas are taken on board is another thing, but certainly you definitely have a voice through the whole process.
Now Loki took on a whole new sort of approach in terms of the story structure and I guess the complexity of the story. How did you tackle, I guess, ensuring that people were able to see or understand like the film and enjoy it, or the show and enjoy it, but also get all these complex, twists and turns and elements into the show?
I mean, I would say, there was a lot of meetings, a lot of viewings, and with a show as complex as Loki was, obviously we didn't want to lose the audience, with the complexity of it all. So yeah, we did, family and friends viewings in which we did make big changes, even, after those things. So yeah, I think that the testing was a good thing. And I think, so many shows do test, but I think for Loki, because it was so complex, that was kind of key to our process, without a doubt. So yeah, I would say that. But we were working on stuff all the way right to the end to make it as clear as possible to the viewers. Yeah.
Now, was there a particular scene or moment that you found particularly challenging with Loki?
I mean, probably the battle with Goliath. Really, that was the big one. That did change quite a bit in the cutting room. Me and Kate were spending a lot of time, with pre-vis and post-vis, and pulling shots in and out of that sequence, rearranging the sequence, liaising with VFX, for hours on. Yeah, it was the beast of the series, I felt. And yeah, I mean, it was massively enjoyable because you were creating a whole sequence from very little to go on. But having the guys in the VFX departments, on our side, was crucial in that sequence. And yeah, that was the standout scene for me. Certainly from the episodes I cut. Yeah.
What was it about that scene that made it difficult, like story wise? What were you trying to change or communicate?
I mean, let's see. Geography was a big part of the sequence, knowing where each of the characters were in relation to each other, and having the joy of classic Loki appearing, and and his part in the story, and how he dies and all that kind of stuff was all played out within the cutting room. And it was a beast. Yeah.
Now, you've worked in comedy, you've worked in VFX heavy, Marvel projects. Is there a particular genre or style or director you want to work with now?
I mean, I watch shows like Succession, and I would love to have a go at yeah. And Jesse Armstrong, who created it, I worked with him years ago in the UK on a show that he created along with Sam Bain. Jesse and Sam created Peep Show. Then they created Fresh Meat. So I worked with them on Fresh Meat. And then they both went to the States, and Jesse's obviously flying high with Succession. So I look at the way that's cut, which is, it blows my mind how they cut that show, because it, so much of it is played in reactions and looks at each other, and the camera never really stops for long, and it's finding little moments, and so I think it'll be a hugely challenging thing to work on a show like that. I would love to test my skills on that one.
Yeah, for sure. Now, in terms of like going back to Loki, you told me about what the challenging scene was. Was there a particular scene that was one that you thought you had the most fun cutting, or the most enjoyment from?
I mean, the action scenes were always good fun. So, on the train in episode 3, when they're on the train and they have the fight with the guards, that was a good fun one to do. And then the action scene within the TVA for when they've for the beginning of episode 3. So yeah, that one was good fun as well. Yeah, I mean, any of the action sequences, because the stunt teams are so good on the Marvel shows, that you had a lot of great stuff to play with, and those sorts of scenes were really enjoyable.
Now, I have a question for you. I was going through your bio before coming on here, and it says you at a young age wanted to escape from the Scottish Highlands. What was it that made you want to escape?
Well, it was the sort of the small town mentality of everyone knowing your business, and you can't do anything without someone knowing what you've done, or you can't wear anything that's slightly different to the AC/DC and Bon Jovi t-shirts that people are still wearing from the 1980s. So yeah, by the time I got to 15, I was ready to get out of the Highlands. So yeah, luckily I was able to go to school in Edinburgh. So I moved to Edinburgh at 15 for the last few years of school, and that was a good move, I think. Yeah.
Now I have one last question for you. we've been stuck in this pandemic for quite a while. Depending on where you are, you're in quarantine, out of quarantine. In that time, people turn to streaming services for entertainment. Is there something you've discovered in the last year or two that you think people should check out?
Now let's see. I mean, we watched a lot of shows during the pandemic because we were actually stuck in a place called Peachtree City. I don't know if you've come across this place, which is just near Pinewood Studios down in Atlanta. So we were kind of stuck there in the middle of a forest for we were there for 8 months altogether. So yeah, there's only so much trees you can watch. So yeah, we would load up Netflix at night once the kids were in bed, and we would just work our way through all the top 10 shows of the current moment. So there's plenty good stuff on there that we enjoyed. The Sinner. Goodness me, I'm trying to think all the different ones that we saw, but we definitely had some guilty pleasures in there. Whether it was because we were missing the UK a little bit, but the Great British Bake Off was a big one on our list. I think we worked through every series of that one. And then also my wife was a big fan of Outlander. She's also Scottish, so we got through all of Outlander as well. So yeah, those two were definitely our guilty pleasures. And then in terms of things that really stuck out, I because we watched so much, there's stuff like Succession and The Sinner, and more recently things like Yellow Jackets was phenomenal.
The thing about Yellow Jackets is, in the story, they enter into Ontario, Canada, where I'm from.
Okay.
And so everyone in our area is just like, there's so much stuff around there. You would just walk out of the forest. And so everyone in this area is like that. You would bump into a store in like 5 minutes.
So something I could ask you actually. Have you seen any of the Will Arnett show that's on Netflix? Is it Murderville, I think it's called?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Have you checked any of it out yet?
Yes. Yeah, it's pretty good. If you like if you're into comedy, it's pretty good.
Yeah, because I don't know if you know that they bought the rights to that show from the UK.
Oh, no way. I didn't know that.
So yeah, if you want to check out the UK version of it,
for sure.
It's called Murder in Successful.
Oh, okay.
And Will was a big fan of it, so he bought the rights of the guys that make it here. But I cut all of the episodes of the UK one.
Oh, wow.
And in terms of editing, that's the hardest show I've ever.
Oh, really? Eh?
The hardest show I've ever cut. Yeah, they would film each episode in 2 days.
Yeah.
And it would take me 8 days just to assemble it. And my assemblies for a half-hour show would be like the longest one was 3 hours.
Wow.
Or that had to bring down to 30 minutes.
Well, the amount of ad-libbing, I'm sure, is just crazy.
It was insane. It was insane, the ad-libbing, and it was all brilliant stuff.
Yeah.
So if you like Will Arnett's one, check out Murder and Successful.
Oh, I definitely will.
I think you'd like it. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for letting me interview you today.
That's all right. Yeah, it's good talking to you.
Yeah, good talking to you. And that's it for this week. Make sure to check out filmmakeru.com for all our latest courses. And of course, follow us on Twitter at filmmaker_u. I'm Gordon Burkell. Thanks for watching. Today's episode of Filmmaker U is brought to you by our sponsors, OWC. Go to owcdigital.com for all your filmmaking and computer needs. And it's also brought to you by our other sponsors, AJA. Make sure to check out aja.com so that you can see how they can help you in your post-production needs.